Hello, welcome back again. I know I'm looking. Sometimes I think we do these shows back to back, and I'm just trying to make sure that I have my timing right. So you saw me looking at that, and it seems to be okay. All right, so let's get back to our subject here. We were in part one. We left off at the troglodytes. We want to go into the meaning of that word and what that means to you and I. And we're talking about things coming in the future, as well as things that have happened in the past. But we want to bring you up to date with what to expect, what's coming upon this earth. So you, Yahsarel, will be ready. You will be the people that are looking up because your redemption draws nigh. And you will help others to see the truth as well. We want to get back right into troglodytes. We were talking about the strange creatures that were upon the earth in our last broadcast that were coming upon earth, poisonous creatures, whether it's on ocean, land, or in the air above. We're going to be talking about persons, other species of people that are on the earth, and we were naming those as giants, Nephilim, Neanderthals, troglodytes, dog-headed men, headless men. What are these? What is this? Well, that's what you're tuning in for. We're gonna tell you. We're gonna get to the dog-headed men in just a moment, but they're actually handed down for many years. And we're going to read some very interesting material. All right, so the term troglodyte, I said I would tell you what that was. Troglodytes was used by Roman writers to describe a people in eastern desert between the Nile and Red Sea, east of Aswan. And when you say Aswan, it's A-S-W-A-N. Some writers, at least in the copies we have of their works, refer to them incorrectly, they say, as troglodytes, cave dwellers. And that's where I have to call this writer on that, because that's not true. It is an actual word, and you can find it in Scripture. And in fact, if you'll go with me to the Pseudepigrapha, Volume 2, and page 329, the Testament of Zebulun, I will read to you what it says about the troglodytes. So since, yeah, and then we'll go back to this. Okay. It says, and after he was sold by his brothers, we're talking about Joseph, sat down to eat and drink, but I, through pity for Joseph, did not eat, but watched the pit. Remember, his brothers had lowered him into a pit. So he couldn't eat. This is the testament of Zebulun. All right. So he watched him, since Judah feared lest Simeon, Dan, and Gad should rush off and slay him. He was nervously watching over his brother Joseph. They had put in a pit because he was concerned about his other brothers I named harming him. All right. But when they saw that I did not eat, they set me to watch him till he was sold to the Ishmaelites. And when Reuben came and heard that while he was away, Joseph had been sold, he rent his garments and mourning said, how shall I look on the face of my father Jacob? And he told them, he took the money and ran after the merchants. But as he failed to find them, he returned grieving. But the merchants had left the broad road, or the road that they would normally take, and marched through the troglodytes by a shortcut. Yeah. So it's in Scripture that these were actually people They called them troglodytes. They were cave dwellers. Well, you might say, well, that doesn't make them, people can live in caves. No, these weren't your average. These were more on the Neanderthal side of the house. These weren't your average looking people. All right? Let's look a little further. I noticed that troglodytes are cave dwellers, but they also were people to be avoided if necessary. But these Ishmaelites went off the main road, off into an offshoot road, trying to make a shortcut, all right, to get Joseph to where they wanted to get. I want you to note something here about, because troglodytes and Horites kind of come together, H-O-R-I-T-E-S, Horites. The name of the Horites, who are either, and I believe they are, I believe Horites is the same as saying Edomites. It says here who are either the Edomites in Genesis 36:22, or in an alternative biblical story, their predecessors, Deuteronomy 2:12, also seems to be derived from a play on Hebrew chor, C-H-O-R, or cave. See, it would make sense if the Edomites were the actual troglodytes, or some of them were. There were many things that went on with the Edomites. Edomites mixed with many people, all kinds of people, and that's a whole nother lesson unto itself. We know eventually they mixed with Italians. We know that for sure. Let me tell you this. Chor, C-H-O-R, relates to cave. We know about Edom. He was born in a cave. If you remember, his father was Lot, right? The original Edom. He was born in a cave by one of the daughters of Lot, right after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and all those cities in that valley, in that area. All right? So, Yah sent what? Brimstone and fire, and took them down, took them out. And they escaped. His wife turned to pillar of salt. We know about that. Get in the cave. The daughters got him drunk, and they had two people. One was the Edomites, and that's the one I want to zero in. The other was the Amorites. But right now, we're going to stick with Edom. All right. So these cave dwellers, the troglodytes, lived on both sides of the Red Sea. Strabo even lumps together the troglodytes of the Horn with Arabs rather than Ethiopians. Likewise, the land of Horites, Edomites, was described as stretching as far as the Red Sea. 1 Kings 9:26. So we have the strange coincidence of cave-dwelling associates with the names of those dwelling in this region, and where else? In both Roman and Hebrew texts. It is so. Dana Reynolds claims, and here is a quote, "They often made their homes among rocks and ravines or grottos, as do some of the present-day Afar tribes. It has been surmised that their name came to be a puny homophone for a cave dweller or one who dwells underground or in grottos, because the word came to be spelled as troglodyte." And that comes from the Journal of African Civilizations, page 11, 1991. Okay. So, well, we always wondered what might be happening to people when you're living in caves. And I have my own theory on that. And I believe there was some experimentations going on. There was some splicing with some of those people. There was some, when you live in a cave, you ever, you've seen some of those creatures that live in caves for so long, and they really do get pale, don't they? They lose their color. But I don't think so much it was that they lost their color, as I think there was something from another place that did some experimenting on a person to make some other species. It happened in the days of Noah. It is happening today. All right? So why would not we think there could be other species on this planet, on this earth? I think you're going to start seeing some strange things that you never thought you'd see before. We already talked about the word cloning. We already talked about, these mocked people, mock-ups. We see some strange giants. We've seen some pictures of them. I don't know if they're all true or not, but I won't be surprised. Don't you be surprised, Yahsharelites. Because there is a spirit on this earth that is so wretched and so violent, and is using those who lend themselves to it and those that are ignorant to it. And people talk about shape shifting and this and that. Don't despise that teaching, because everybody you walk by who looks like a human is not necessarily a full human. You see, there are entities in this earth that can take form, or they can use form. It happened to the fallen angels that saw the women of men and that they were beautiful and ended up having sex with them and creating what they call the giants. There were also other type creatures here at one time or another. And you want to know how they built the pyramids? You want to know how they did things that today they cannot do? You have to start understanding that you're not the only species. The word human is H-U-E-M-A-N. They took the E out and made it human for everybody. But everybody's not human. There are different species. I'm telling you that. You need to dig into that. And a lot of people that look normal, like walking by on the street, everybody you walk by is not completely human. Some, I fair to say, are even demons. We talked about the headless person. These people were actually, it was written into archives that people had seen dog-faced people that thought, but they were supposedly human in their personalities. However, they could be very vicious. And who's to say that some of these people that were experimented on by some of these fallen entities here in this earth, what do call experiment gone wrong? They may have gotten it more right as time went by. Be alert, be aware of what's going on in this earth. I also wanted to just hit on a little bit. I know I'm not going to make a whole teaching on it, but I wanted to, since there's so many people saying that there's chariots, they're seeing these lights in the heavens, and they don't know UFOs and what have you. I'm not saying every light is that they say is a UFO is. Apparently they don't know what it is, so it's unidentified to them. I don't think every light you see is necessarily from Yah's messengers, but I do know they exist. Let's put it that way. I want to read a little bit, to give you some encouragement on that, because I want to then leave you and go into something else. I just wanted to leave that teaching as far as troglodytes, and I want you to study it. I want you to go in and look and see that there are people that are humanoids, and there are people that are also of a different species. All right, hominids. So I want you to know you're not walking among just regular folk all the time. I'm not saying all Caucasoids are this or that. I'm saying some within their ranks are, and some within our own. Be careful. We don't fight against flesh and blood. We fight against what? Principalities and powers. These are manifestations of wickedness of spiritual entities. And they're among us right now. That's why we need our Yah in the midst of us. For greater is he that's within us than he that is in this world. I just wanted to encourage you with a little kind of a high moment here. The chariots of Yahsarel, we do have chariots now, and I want to give you the scriptures for them as a kind of make you feel a little bit better after all of this troglodyte and talk. 2 Kings 2. And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, this is 11th verse. Behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by the whirlwind into heaven. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Yahsarel, and the horsemen thereof. And he saw him no more. And he took hold of his clothes and rent them in two pieces. He took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him, and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. When the whirlwind came, it was a chariot. You can call it a spaceship. I don't care what you call it, but it was a chariot of Yah. All right? It was mobile. And it swooped in as a whirlwind and took Elijah. In 2 Kings 6, 15 to 18, it says in the 15th verse, it says, and when the servant of the man of Yah was had risen early and gone forth, behold, the hosts compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, alas, my master, how shall we do? And he said, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Yahuah, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And Yahuah opened his eyes, the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire around about them. Remember, horses and chariots, it does not mean a flesh and blood horse and a chariot that man makes. It's a device of travel, and that's what they understood, all right? And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto Yahuah and said, smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And if you go to Genesis 5, 23 to 25, write it down. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with Yah, and he was not, for Yah took him. Okay? He didn't disappear, he was taken. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. If you go to Ezekiel 1, 4 to 6, and I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and the brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. Remember, Yah is a consuming fire. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. We know who he is. And everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. The power and the might of our Yahuah. Isaiah 66:15, for behold, Yahuah will come with fire, and with his chariots, like a whirlwind, like the same whirlwind that took up Elijah. A whirlwind, like a not a whirlwind, not a tornado, like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames. That's coming. That's coming. Yahsarel. Last scripture, Joel 2, 4 to 6. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap. Remember, Elijah prayed that his servants see. These chariots were high up and appeared to be on the top of the mountains because they were hovering over the mountains. They shall leap These are going to talk about dashing quickly. And you're seeing things in the sky now, in the heavens that are dashing, moving quickly. Be not surprised. Like the noise of a flame of fire that devours the stubble. It's a crackling sound. As a strong people set in battle array, there is war coming. And I'm not talking about this earthly war fighting nation against nation. I'm talking about the chariots of the Most High. I'm talking about his messengers. I'm talking about his hosts. That's what I'm talking about. Like the noise of a flame of fire that devours the stubble. Who's the stubble? This evil, wicked generation and all those that came before it. As a strong people set in battle array before their face, the people shall be much pained. We talked about that in the last program. Much pain. All faces shall gather blackness. And what this is talking about is they shall be so burdened with grief. It's changed their whole continents. People's hearts will be failing them for fear. It's happening now. I believe one of the first casualties of one of the storms that hit catastrophe was someone that had a heart attack, or was a fire. I can't remember exactly which one. But the person didn't burn or didn't experience the actual catastrophe, but what was coming upon them frightened them so until they succumbed and died. Yeah. We must know when we look up in the heavens and see the signs that Yahusha promised. These signs are for you, Yahsarel, and all those who believe likewise, that there is a Messiah and he is the actual right arm of Yahuah, and he has come and he has manifested himself in this earth, and he is coming back again, and he is bringing his hosts with him, and his hosts have been here before, and they are watching and they are waiting for his command. And you being a part of the family of the Most High, you be encouraged. For every time, I've said this before, for every time you hear on the news of one of our people for no reason just being mowed down, blown away, shot up, you watch what comes next. And I told you that before, and that just happened here in Texas again. That tornado in Dallas. Shot that young woman in her bedroom. I said every time, look for devastation. For every one of ours will be so much suffering for the masses. And that's something that Yah said would happen. He said 10,000 would fall on our right hand and 1,000 would on our left. But none of these things are going to affect you, Yahsarel, if you understand. I say that because without understanding, how are you to have faith? You have to have faith in what Yah has promised. You have to understand what he's promised and have faith in what he has said. I don't have the time or the unction from the Spirit of the Most High, the set-apart Spirit, to wreak out against the masses venom. My position is to get my people ready. That's what I'm commissioned to do, to speak into your lives, Yahsarel, and for all of those roofs out there who have come. All of you must understand that this is not a day that we can lay back and be complacent. This is the time you need to teach your children to be alert, not afraid, but alert, where they are and who they're with. Because Satan is on a rampage. You can see it in the news. You can see it in your neighborhood. You can see it everywhere you go. Death and mayhem is on the menu today. People by the thousands are living on the streets, working and still cannot afford a place to live. People are going hungry. This world is crumbling, and this country is crumbling. This is near end time. This is a few seconds more on the clock. And I say this with all sincerity. I'm not playing or playing games with you. There are things here that aren't human. There are spirits here that are using people against you. Yahusha told the Pharisees, the religious sect, those that were against him, plotting his death at every turn, you're like white painted sepulchres. You're white on the outside. You look refreshing on the outside, but it's stench on the inside of you. You are rotten to the core. Don't let the angel of light fool you. This world is not our friend. It hated our Messiah. He said that it will hate us. You are to love one another. Yahudah, Yahudis, Yahsarel. You're to love one another as Messiah has loved you, as Yahuah has loved you. You come back for part 3. You don't want to miss it. You're going to get a little bit more involved in this plan. Come on back now and be a part and be encouraged, for your time isn't much longer. Until next time, Shalom.